Everything felt calm on the surface, almost peaceful, as if nothing could ever go wrong. But deep underneath that calm, something had already begun to crack, and it all started the moment people walked into a place they had always believed was sacred, a place where every wall, every corner, every quiet space was supposed to represent purity, honesty, discipline, and leadership that never failed. Yet that belief slowly weakened when quiet whispers began spreading that behind closed doors some of the highest and most respected leaders were involved in a moment nobody ever imagined could happen. And the shock moved fast through the community when word spread that Bishop Brandon Porter, along with a few respected elders, had been seen drinking together in a private gathering, something that felt like a deep wound to followers who trusted every word spoken from the pulpit and believed these men lived exactly as they preached. And what made it even heavier was the realization that this was not the end, but only the beginning of a story that would shake the entire gospel world, because for years people had been taught that leaders in the Church of God in Christ followed strict rules, preached holiness, discipline, and a life free from anything that could cause doubt about character. Yet suddenly the image no longer matched the reality. And that mismatch created tension as rumors that started with only a few voices grew louder every hour, some people asking how such a thing could happen, others insisting there had to be more hidden beneath the surface. And the confusion only deepened when no clear answers came from leadership, no explanations, no statements, nothing to calm the growing storm, until details of that night slowly began to emerge, and the story became even more complicated, because it was not described as a simple gathering, but something secretive, private, and unsettling. With bottles brought in quietly, doors deliberately closed, phones intentionally put away, and an unspoken agreement that whatever happened inside that room was never meant to leave it, making it even more shocking because these were the same elders who repeatedly warned others to stay away from temptation. Yet on that night, they stepped directly into the very behavior they preached against, leading people to ask uncomfortable questions about what else might have been happening behind the scenes for years without anyone knowing. And as all of this spread, the community began looking back at Bishop Brandon Porter's rise, remembering how he was once seen as a young, energetic leader who worked tirelessly, stayed visible, connected with people in ways older leaders struggled to, inspired hope, and represented a fresh future for leadership, which made the fall feel even more painful because destiny took an unexpected turn, and the same man once praised for discipline and strength was now being discussed in hushed tones and long conversations that stretched late into the night, leaving people torn between sympathy and disappointment. Some saying he was only human, others arguing that leadership required a higher level of responsibility. And what truly set this story apart was that it was never just about drinking, but about the realization that something deeper was unfolding inside a respected institution, slowly revealing that the image people had believed in for years might never have been the full truth. And with every new detail, the weight of doubt grew heavier, questions multiplied, and the silence from leadership became louder than any explanation, until everyone could feel that something major was approaching, something that would permanently change how faith and leadership were viewed. As more people began sharing what they had heard about that night, describing how it began like many ordinary meetings before it with discussions about church events, decisions, and direction. But as the hours passed, the atmosphere quietly shifted. Seriousness faded, boundaries loosened, and what started as a routine gathering transformed into something relaxed, then hidden, and finally something no one expected elders to be involved in. With the tone of the room changing rapidly once bottles were placed on the table, laughter following, glances exchanged to make sure no one was watching, no phones pulled out, no doors opened, a clear intention to keep the moment locked inside those walls. And this was where the line between right and wrong blurred completely. As some later admitted, feeling a strange mix of relief and guilt, relief from the heavy pressure of expectations, and guilt from knowing they were crossing a line they had drawn so firmly for others. And as the drinks continued, conversations grew louder and more honest than ever before, with elders speaking openly about pressure, doubts, disagreements, and tensions that had been building for months. Not small complaints, but deep frustrations that revealed cracks in leadership that could have caused serious damage if exposed. Arguments over decisions, confessions of exhaustion from pretending to be perfect, And for the first time, the human side of these leaders was fully visible, showing they were not untouchable or flawless, but struggling silently. While Bishop Brandon Porter sat at the center listening, speaking, and even sharing concerns he had never voiced publicly, until destiny took another unexpected turn when someone who was not supposed to be there saw enough to ignite rumors the very next morning, turning secrecy into exposure as by sunrise conversations were already spreading and by afternoon messages, screenshots, and discussions flooded social platforms, splitting opinions sharply between those who defended the leaders as human and those who viewed the incident as betrayal and a violation of trust, transforming a private meeting into a public storm that shook leadership from the inside. As debates intensified, arguments became heated, and even people outside the church community became involved, forcing leaders to respond while struggling internally, with some attempting to minimize the incident as harmless and others demanding accountability, creating division among elders who were once united, as arguments broke out behind closed doors, shame and regret clashing with denial, and the institution itself appeared to crack under the weight. While the fallout reached the congregation where faith was shaken, prayers felt different, and some questioned whether to stay at all, as traditional media labeled the incident a scandal and analyzed its impact on the future of Bishop Porter, the elders, and the church's reputation, turning what began as a private lapse into a defining public moment that forced conversations about honesty, transparency, and accountability, revealing that authority does not remove human weakness and forcing everyone to confront uncomfortable truths about trust and leadership. As the aftermath lingered far longer than expected, with conversations growing louder, questions becoming sharper, and people struggling to reconcile the image of a disciplined leader with the reality they now faced, realizing the story was no longer about one night, but a reflection of deeper pressures and hidden struggles within leadership itself, sparking discussions that had never happened before about reform, responsibility, and realism, showing how quickly private actions could ripple outward and affect thousands. And despite the anger, confusion, and disappointment, the incident also opened space for reflection and hope that honesty could lead to growth.